afternoon and welcome to this Wednesday, October 31st Halloween edition of Westman Newsline. I'm Randy Joseph Lilly alongside Dylan Donald and Colton Yarich. In today's news, we'll tell you about the annual food drive that's taking place in Brandon tonight and bring you the latest on the Phoenix Sinclair inquiry. And Dylan will be in with sports. Dylan, I understand women's curling got some good news yesterday.
That's correct, Randy. A major network will air Curl Manitoba's two big women's championships in 2013. I'll bring you the details on that and more later on in sports.
Thanks, Dylan. And Colton will be in with weather. Colton, how's it looking for all the trick-or-treaters who are planning to hit the streets tonight?
That's right, Randy. The weather will be frightful tonight, which could be both a good thing and a bad thing. Good because frightful is in keeping with Halloween, and bad because that means the youngsters may have to wear a few extra layers under their costumes. Currently in Brandon, it is foggy and 6. Wind is out of the northwest at 21 kilometers an hour, gusting to 32 kilometers an hour. That's it for now, but I'll be back later in the show with full weather details.
Thanks, Colton. There will be more than just youngsters out and about trick-or-treating tonight. The ACC Students Association and the Brandon University Students Union are working together to collect something other than candy for their food banks. The 7th annual Halloween food drive gets underway tonight as BU and ACC go head-to-head in a bragging rights contest to see which institution can gather the most food for their respective schools. ACC will be canvassing east of 18th Street and BU will be knocking on doors in neighborhoods west of 18th. Last year's Halloween drive brought in just over 6,000 pounds of food for Busu's Food Bank, while ACC's SA raised more than 2,500 pounds. Tonight, ACC and BU students will be going door to door from 4:30 to 8:30. Canned fruits and vegetables, pasta and soup are some examples of non-perishable food items the students hope to collect. More than 18,000 students gathered at Winnipeg's MTS Center yesterday to hear former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and other motivational speakers at an annual event called We Day. Gorbachev, using a translator, told the students they should never allow themselves to be divided and they should always be ready to act. The Nobel Prize winner also received the keys to the city, as did Spencer West, the legless Toronto man who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Winnipeg's We Day celebrations were part of a national event organized by the international children's charity Free the Children. Sadly, though, some children fall through the cracks. Such was the case with 5-year-old Phoenix Sinclair. The inquiry into the death of the little girl who was abandoned by Manitoba's child welfare system will resume November 14th. The Phoenix Sinclair inquiry was delayed after lawyers representing child welfare agencies demanded full transcripts of interviews done with witnesses. The Manitoba Court of Appeal rejected the request earlier this month, clearing the way for the hearing to resume. 5-year-old Phoenix was beaten to death by her mother and mother's boyfriend months after child welfare workers removed her from a foster home and gave her back to her family. People in a remote fly-in community in northern Manitoba can now join the rest of the country in getting their Timmy's fix. Tim Hortons has opened a store in Oxford House, a community about 1,000 kilometers north of Winnipeg. Oxford House Chief Timothy Muskego says the opening of a major national chain is positive for the community. Northwest Company CEO Edward Kennedy says residents said they needed a Tim Hortons, and the company listened. Speaking of listening, the stock market was doing just that when Hurricane Sandy roared through the eastern U.S. We'll have that story for you in just a moment. But now let's take a look at where the money markets are currently sitting.
You're watching Westman Newsline, produced by the media production students of Assiniboine Community College. Local news, weather, and sports only on Westman Newsline, airing on WCG-TV at 1 p.m. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Water, snow, flooding, heavy winds. Hurricane Sandy has left her mark on the eastern United States, and now the cleanup has begun. CNN's Renee Marsh reports from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Residents across the eastern seaboard are beginning to pick up the pieces in the wake of Superstorm Sandy.
I've lived here for 39 years. I've been through several hurricanes going back to Gloria, and I've never seen anything like this at all.
Sandy made landfall near Atlantic City, New Jersey Monday night, bringing a storm surge that flooded the Jersey Shore, New York subway tunnels, and LaGuardia Airport. The storm sparked electrical fires and knocked out power to millions. Rescue efforts are still underway to save those left stranded. This woman and her mother rode out the storm trapped in a car.
You don't know because there's nobody around. You don't know where to go. You're trying to get out of a window. You're up to your neck in water. It's freezing. The wind is blowing.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said residents of his state are devastated.
This is a monumental task that we have in front of us. So I'd ask them this week for their patience. And then the week after that, we're going to need their resilience as we begin to go back to work and rebuild our state.
President Obama signed disaster declarations for New Jersey and New York, clearing the way for federal aid.
I want every agency to lean forward and to make sure that we are getting the resources where they're needed as quickly as possible.
Sandy is moving northwest with the potential to bring flooding to the Great Lakes and winter weather to the mountains. Along this street, many people still do not have any power. At this point, more than 6 million people have no power, and utility companies say it could be a week, it could be more. Reporting in Hoboken, New Jersey, I'm Renee Marsh.
Should a major storm the magnitude of Sandy ever hit Canada, we Canucks are likely to be in really big trouble. That's because, according to a recent poll by the Canadian Red Cross, 67% of Prairie residents say they have not taken steps to prepare in the event of a disaster like a massive storm. That's despite the fact that nearly half of the Prairie residents say they have personally been affected by a severe storm or tornado-related disaster. Only 23% of Prairie residents say they have an emergency preparedness kit in their homes. 1/3 of Prairie residents report having experienced a flood-related disaster, and 16% have lost electricity for more than 72 hours. And that's it for news, but stay tuned. Colton's up next with Newsline Weather.
Good afternoon with Newsline Weather. I'm Colton Yard. Well, it's Halloween and the weather is a tad frightful, but lots of youngsters will be on the streets for the occasion, so please watch out for all the trick-or-treaters that will be going out and about tonight. Currently in Brandon, it's foggy and 6 degrees. Wind is out of the northwest at 21 kilometers per hour, gusting to 32 kilometers per hour. Tonight will be cloudy and temperatures will dip down to 0, so make sure you're bundled up if you're heading out trick-or-treating. There is a 20% chance of showers, and winds will be out of the north at 15 kilometers an hour. Overnight, that cloud coverage will continue. The low is -6. There's a 20% chance of showers or even flurries. Winds will be out of the north at 10 kilometers per hour. Taking a look at our radar image now, as you can see in Brandon, the precipitous cells around the area will migrate to the southeast. And turning to our satellite image, brief cloud activity from the northwestern United States will make its way to Manitoba in the coming days, but majority of it will stay in the U.S. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast, tomorrow we should see a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 1 degree, a low of -4. Winds will be out of the east at 15 kilometers per hour. Friday is going to be a little bit cooler. We'll see a partly cloudy sky with even some scattered flurries, a high of 0 and a low of -4. Winds will be out of the north at 10 kilometers per hour. And on Saturday, more clouds, again a high of 0 and a low of -4. Winds will be out of the east at 15 kilometers per hour. And on Sunday, the sun will try to peek through a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 2 degrees, a low of -5. Winds will be out of the northeast at 10 kilometers per hour. Back to work Monday, there will be a mix of sun and cloud, and temperatures are going to rise a little bit up to 9 degrees, a low of -1. Winds will be out of the southwest at 25 kilometers per hour. Taking a look around the region right now, Winnipeg and Portage are both in at 3 degrees. Meanwhile, Dauphin and Neepawa are in at 5 degrees. Carberry is sitting at 4 degrees. Killarney in at 6, as well as Minnedosa, and Verdun will round us out at 4 degrees. Seasonal norms for this time of year are 5 degrees and a low of -6. Record highs for this date was a beautiful temperature of 20.7 set back in 1983. Our record low was a chilly minus 24.1 and was set back in 1991. Once again in Brandon, it is foggy and 4 degrees. Wind is out of the northwest at 21 kilometers per hour, gusting to 32 kilometers per hour. That's it for weather, but stick around. Dylan's up next with Newsline Sports.
Good afternoon with Newsline Sports. I'm Dylan Donald. As we told you yesterday, Assiniboine Community College's president, Mark Frison, announced at a Monday press conference that ACC will be adding soccer to its list of men's and women's sports. Westman Newsline's Colton Yarge subbed in to file this report.
Mark Frison has future students thinking about summertime. The ACC president announced Monday at a press conference at Vincent Massey High School that the college will be home to both a men and women's soccer team starting in the fall of 2013. With concerns of not having enough interest for her team, Frison says the choice of bringing in varsity soccer was a no-brainer due to the challenges of Brandon.
It seemed like a logical one. I mean, it's certainly been a growing sport domestically, and again, for the changing face of Brandon, for our newcomers to Canada, it's for many of the countries of origin, it has always been the #1 sport. So a logical choice for our future.
Desiree Scott, a member of the Canadian national women's soccer team and also a proud Manitoban, was also in town for the announcement. She conducted several drills and a mini camp to over 1,000 students from several schools across the city, not only to raise excitement for the game, but to also show there is success to be had at the varsity level.
I hope they can look at me as a role model and to see that someone who has stayed locally for university, who has gone through the soccer programs within Manitoba, can actually get to a high level and play international soccer. And I just hope to be that role model that they can look up to and hopefully inspire them to, achieve their goals and work.
Members from the Brandon Youth Soccer Association, who were also on hand for the announcement, say the organization is ecstatic by the announcement and that the team should have no problem finding players.
We already had players who were interested. Actually, quite a few of them had contemplated going to Olds College in Alberta, and we've had some of our best competitive players go to other colleges and universities. So, we will definitely promote it.
Assiniboine Community College's athletic director, Larry Shannon, has already began negotiations with coaches and players to come over to the ACC soccer teams, which will start their league action in September of 2013. Desiree Scott, the Canadian National Olympian of the National Women's Soccer Team, will be in town for Soccer Day in Brandon, where over 1,000 students in the Brandon School Division will take part in drills that are taking place right here in Vincent Massey High School. For Westman Newsline with photographer Graham Leachman, I'm Colton Yarge.
Come next year, women's curling in Manitoba will be getting more exposure when the Scotties Tournament of Hearts and the Safeway Championship air on national television. It was announced yesterday that Curl Manitoba has signed a 10-year agreement with Sportsnet that will allow for the broadcast of the semifinals and the finals of both for the event. The men's playoffs have been aired for several years now, but this is the first time that Manitoba's women's playoffs will be aired across the nation. Next year's Scotties tournament is taking place in Stonewall, while the Safeway Championship is set to take place in Neepawa. Last night, the Miami Heat got their championship rings and then watched their NBA championship banner get hoisted to the rafters. Dwayne Wade scored 29 points, and LeBron James finished with 26 points and 10 rebounds while missing much of the second half because of both legs cramping. The Heat beat the Celtics 120-107. Major League Baseball managers and coaches selected this year's Golden Glove Award winners with a list that included 9 first-time winners. Selected for the Gold Glove team were 3 members of the Baltimore Orioles, shortstop J.J. Hardy, center fielder Adam Jones, and catcher Matt Wieters. St. Louis Cardinals catcher Yadier Molina and Yankees first baseman Mark Teixeira each won for the 5th time, while the Rangers third baseman Adrian Beltre, Philly shortstop Jimmy Rollins, and as well Miami pitcher Mark Burley all picked up their 4th Golden Glove. Los Angeles Angels center fielder Mike Trout didn't get chosen despite a season full of sensational catches. That's it for Westman for sports. Randy?
Thanks, Dylan. And that's all we have for you today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline.